Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk episode. Somebody's got their speaker open. Episode 725, recording today, live Wednesday, the 24th of August. Welcome to one and all. This is a music technology podcast where we talk about things to do with music technology. It being summer, that's a bit of a stretch sometimes, just because everybody goes on holiday and they don't make or release things so often. But we've got plenty to talk about still. And I do welcome all our friends in the YouTube chat, the IRC chat, and in the Discord, and I think everything's going through. Yes, the YouTube chat looks like we've got everybody coming in, which means that I can throw this is working. Means I can throw the lower thirds up and toss the occasional chat in. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's do that one. Afternoon all, says Mr. Gumvey. There we go. And but we've also got questions in from Twitter, and we've also got questions in from everybody else. So if you do have a question for the panel, and this could be just a general audio question or something specific, all you got to do is in the live chat, start your question with a QQ. And we'll get round to it. It should be caught, and I can make a little list. Hopefully we'll get round to it. But if not, it should stay in the list, and we might be able to get to it next week. So that's the idea. I'm trying to build this up as a feature. It's working. But welcome, everybody. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody. Sorry, I'm a bit flustered. I'll tell the story now because those of you who weren't watching on the pre-show, which is available on Patreon, by the way, will know that the doorbell just went. Jane came up and said, "There's somebody at the door with a massive lorry and a delivery of loads of bags of sand and cement. It's supposed to come on Friday," and they delivered it on Wednesday. The guy said, "Oh, sorry, do you not want it then?" I'm like, "Well, I kind of do, but I can't." So anyway, that's why I'm a bit thrown. But while I'm thrown, I just mentioned this. Actually, we just posted this up on Patreon, which is from our Roland thing. There was at the store, they did a 45-minute chat with all of these artists.
My name's Jack Garrett. I'm a musician and producer and performer.
I'm Rachel K. Collier. I'm an electronic music producer and performer.
Why?
Yeah, so basically, Andy shot the whole thing. There's 45 minutes chat with those people: Sister Bliss, Steve Levine, I've forgotten the third guy's name, and the guy from Dire Straits, and a guy called Gerald. If you want to check that out, it's an exclusive video on Patreon. Join us on Patreon. We now do annual subscriptions as well at quite a hefty discount if you're interested in that. Anyway, that's all of that stuff. Let's say hello to our guests because we have, I think I remember you from last week, Matt. Isn't that right? How are you? Matt Hodson, a.k.a. Maths. How are you, Matt?
I'm all right. I'm sorry if the viewers are getting a little bit sick of me. I know I've been on for a few weeks straight, but it's what we love to do, isn't it? We love to geek out about music production and synths and all that sort of stuff. So how can I turn you down, Nick? How can I turn you down?
Exactly. Well, I'm good, though, it's appreciated. Did you say you had something happening this afternoon? Have you got like your own stream happening this afternoon? You say you're doing something.
Yeah, I have actually. 6 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be chatting with Matt Preston, who ran Matek Modular, which we've talked about actually on the show before. For those of you that don't know, Matek Modular, it's a Eurorack specialist online shop, recently closed or is in the midst of closing. So I'm going to chat to Matt tonight on my YouTube channel, 6 o'clock, and we're going to kind of talk about the current climate of buying, selling Eurorack, setting up your own business. He's also going to, he's going to offer some tips to anyone who's thinking of setting up their own businesses and doing things like this, and just giving us that sort of insider view on everything. So yeah, please do join us if you've got any questions for us. It's going to be live, and I think it's going to be an interesting chat.
So you're going to go straight from this pretty much and on to, so you've got an entire day of live streaming sorted out. Anyway, well, lovely to have you, Matt, and I hope you get a good audience there as well, because I'm sure people will be very interested in that. And thanks, we also have Paulee from. Look, I've even updated your lower third, and you've got your first video out, which is on my fave 5 creative reverbs. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I've actually done 10, but the video is getting way too long, so I was like, I'll split it into 2. And I've put the first half out. So the second half will come out whenever I have time because, my baby's kind of looming large. But it's been great. I've had a great response. Someone said I'm attempting to be the Stanley Kubrick of YouTube video demonstrators or something like that. With all my shots and and cuts and things like that. But I was actually just doing that because I didn't have a particularly good camera at the time. And I was like, if you can't make a really good, pristine, crystalline video, just make it, lo-fi on purpose. Just put VHS filters on everything and, make it look even worse. So, yeah, it's been fantastic. I did a really good response, and I'm sure Wagyu will probably pop the link in the chat if anyone's missed it. I doubt anyone's missed it because I've been promoting it like hell all week.
Yeah, well, we shared it on Facebook and I think I've shared it a couple of places, but the link will go in. The link will go in your lower third. Actually, have I got the link ready to go? I'm trying to look for it. Here we go. I'm going to stick it in the chat now. If I put it in the YouTube chat, then it will show up at the right place. There we go. That's in there now, so that's handy.
Also, I want to say thanks for the help with the synthesizer solo at the end of the video.
Yeah, I still feel a little uncomfortable with it. I realised I used pitch bend, which it's a bit of a ghastly kind of guitarism trope, and I just thought, I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, the sun's gone in, so I think I need to turn up my camera. Oh no, maybe it's that way. That's the way. Turn up the light.
Games,
anyway, okay, right. Well, let's get on to a couple of topics. Actually, I've got a one thing I want to get in there just before we go too much further is now let me see. I think I can push this here. If I clip this one, and I think this will show up. Does it? Yeah, here we go. This is yeah, here it comes. So this was EMOM Derby, which was Jamie's. This is a clip. This was I thought it was them setting up, but it seems, it is them setting up with a bit of music. Hopefully, we won't get busted on that. YouTube are pretty hot at the moment. The big news is that I think if I push this. Yeah, GeoSynths is doing an EMOM in Blackpool on Saturday night, August 26th, 7 till 11. You can go along there and Jamie, that's GeoSynths, he's sort of flexing his streaming muscle. I'd love to make it, but if you go to that URL that should show up in the YouTube links, then you will see, you'll be able to find the event details and go. If not, you can watch it live streaming. I just wanted to post that sort of to get on the go. But I mean, the other thing is, I don't know if either of you saw the EMOM. The EMOM is electronic music open mic night. In fact, I've started to make inquiries as to doing one in Bath sometime before the end of the year, and I've just found a venue which may be suitable. It's the football ground in Bath because it's got masses of parking, because parking is a nightmare in Bath. But this is slightly outside of Bath, and there's a huge parking space outside it, and then there's a sort of big bar. I mean, it's not the most beautiful place, but it's probably quite affordable. And I'm going to go and check the internet out. But I just thought, what do we think? I mean, are you tempted by this sort of thing? I mean, either going or performing? I mean, no, it's quite an ask to just go, even if it's just 20 minutes.
No, definitely. I mean, I haven't really performed live since I was doing my band stuff. And I've got to say, about being a band live, it's really quite stressful setting everything up for each gig, like doing all the mics on the drums and blah, blah, blah. I'd love to rock up to one of these, probably with my Amiga 1200 to do the MIDI sequencing whilst running a few samples out of it into my modular and just, rocking some songs.
Would you have a CRT with you for that? Would you be bringing a CRT with the Amiga?
Sure, Brill. I'll bring a CRT if you want me to. I mean, I can run off LCD, but if you need a CRT, Nick, then
not the trick is with all of these things is because I think Jamie's got 12 people playing. I don't know how many they had in Derby. It was maybe 8 or 10. But it's getting the turnarounds to be quick, and so that requires people not bringing, massively complicated things. You sort of almost want to be able to just go clonk. I think what we'd do is maybe try and have two sections, but we'd stream it anyway. Yeah. Matt, I know you'd be up for it because you're playing live all the time, and you just rock up with your case, and I'm sure you could play. I imagine it'd be harder for you to play for 20 minutes than an hour.
I think the way that I would treat this, and I've seen a lot of these cropping up more and more, EMOMs. They're certainly going on down here in Brighton and London. But I think the way that I would treat these is really as a platform for me to to try something new, to experiment a little bit, maybe to take together like a very minimal setup, or to take some equipment I haven't really used and kind of force myself to perform and create something on the fly, something brand new. There's actually something I've been part of, and there's a few really cool guys who do something called the Brighton Modular Meet, and Brighton Modular Sessions, I think it is. And what we used to do there, they used to have modular people turn up. You bring your case, and you kind of go back to back. So someone's on for like 10 minutes, then you're on for 10 minutes, and it's just like a very quick crossover. So you've got very little time to prepare. Everything's very kind of made in the moment. There's no kind of rules. And then you end up with all sorts of interesting outcomes and output. And I think the thing I take away from those sort of nights is going up to people and saying, hey, what was you doing there with that oscillator or that filter or something? And they might have just done something that hit my ear, and I was like, I like that. How are you doing that? And then it just creates conversation. People get chatting, networking, and I think these things are really good from that point of view.
I wonder if we could do something because I remember seeing in Bath it was a dance battle, and I've never seen one of those before, and it was really exciting and really. I wonder if you could do a similar thing. I don't suppose. I mean, modular jamming is not really a kind of adversarial or kind of one-uppy kind of thing. It's quite hard to kind of just sort of bust your move and sort of mic drop and walk off, and everyone goes way, and then the next one comes in. But there might be something. Yeah. We're going to look into it. I mean, I think we've done live events before, and to be honest, they're very stressful to organise. So it might be we try. And film somebody else's first and then do our own. But I think it'd be fun to do our own. And that's something I just think EMOM, it seems to be a growing trend, and it's great. I mean, there was, in the Derby one, it's well worth checking out. There's lots of really interesting variants on, guy with a computer or somebody with a circuit or somebody with a tracker. They're really very compact. And some of the stuff was actually musically really good. And it's just a 20-minute set. So I think Jamie... we'll have a great show in Blackpool. I hope the venue's good and he gets good internet and stuff, because that's always stressful too. But that's what I'm going to go down and check at this venue I've got in mind. I'm going to go down with a speed test and make sure there's a wire, and it may be something that we can do. So we'll see.
Good luck, Jamie. Good luck, Jamie and the crew. Hope it goes well. I think it'd be awesome. Another thing you might want to consider, Jamie, or even you, Nick, if you pull this off the ground, is having some pre-set up equipment. You could have like a drum machine, a monosynth, and a sequencer or something, and people are only allowed to use that. And you get maybe 10 minutes to come up with something, and then you're live or something like that. So kind of like what we talked before about Make Noise, sending around their kind of, their system, and then getting people to create something with that. Yeah, do you know what I mean, Paulee?
That's scary.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Good scary, eh?
Interesting idea. I wonder how it's a bit like. I don't know whether, because I'm not a singer, but I've been at that situation where we go to the pub and there's a karaoke thing going on. It's very rare that they do that, and then somebody who didn't think would be in any way kind of up for that suddenly is up there and they're doing it, and you sort of suddenly feel all this pressure to kind of perform. And I've been in that situation and I can't sing. I'm thinking, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? And then it comes to the end of it, and I just haven't got the bottle to do it. So I imagine it might be a similar sort of vibe to that. But that's a great idea. It might be something that we could think on, actually, because it's a big space. We could have several tables. What we need are tables on wheels, so that we just go, you set up here, that one gets wheeled off, that one gets wheeled on. It's really because it's moving the cameras and stuff that's the pain. That's the difficult thing. But yeah, okay, interesting. I like the idea of that, though. Great thought. Actually, before we get going, we may as well just bring a message in from our friends over at why not? I'm trying to remember which way round it is. I try and do them either or, and I think it was last week. It was Baby Audio first, so we'll have a word from our friends over at iZotope.
Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
And of course, if you want to save 10% on anything from iZotope that's not subscriptions, but any of their other plugins, including sale items by the looks of things, head over to iZotope.com/Sonictalk, where they've got a special landing page, and you use the code Sonic10 at checkout to claim your 10% off. Once again, we thank them very much for their continued support. I've just got to throw this one up here. This is via Ken Lewis. When are we going to invite Prince Charles Alexander onto the show? It's a name we're so familiar with, yet I'm unaware of his work. I think I need to follow it up. But yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, we should see if we can get them to come on. Anyway, right, let's have a look, see where we are in terms of. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Now, this is actually, there's not really anything. I have got something to play for this because I just thought, wasn't it nice? Which I can just some Moogs are up by 40%. I thought I'd play some Matriarch. It's a polyphonic patch. And it is this was a lovely instrument, I have to say. I think this is a cracker. Which is 4 square waves. Anyway, I think what the original headline is essentially, it was on Synthtopia, Mints and Synth Anatomy. Move Synths prices are rising. Here's why. I think Synth Anatomy, initial thoughts were it might be up to 60% or something, which is not the case. Some are only going up 5 or 10%. Two big ones are Grandmother, 38%. Don't forget, that was announced, I think, and designed before the 25% Chinese electronic parts US tax that came in, so that's going to massively affect things. And I think the subsequent 25 is 41%, but many are much less. But this is obviously a bigger trend. And I think we're really starting to see this kick in. I know, Matt, you posted a couple of things. WMD are kind of having a fire sale because they're just shutting down or mothballing. We don't know if they're going out of business or whether they're just stopping until it's. I mean, this is actually proving to be a big issue for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, it really is. And the sad news of WMD, who haven't said that they're completely closing forever. Let's hope it's a hiatus. There was Justin, my friend who does abstract data, was just posting today actually on the internet about how they're waiting now for over a year for some of these chips that they need, and the prices have gone up tenfold. So it's a sign of the times, and it's really starting to hit home with me, not just for my own energy bills and things like that, but obviously buying studio equipment and that kind of thing. It's just a lot of it's just not becoming affordable if you're buying outside of the UK. And I think it is good to support local shops as much as you can. I try and do that anyway. But 60%, I mean, that's not 10%, that's not 20%, that's 60%, Nick. It's a big increase, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I should say, I don't think 60% was the headline, but I think actually it ended up being closer to 40. I mean, it's still a lot. I mean, there's no denying it. But and that's only on a couple of things. But we're obviously going to see a bit. I mean, on the flip side, obviously Behringer did their strategy was kind of look what we're going to make, and they've got this. I don't know how long their list of things that they're waiting to make is, but it's massive. And presumably none of this stuff is going to happen until they can get the parts at an affordable price, and they're buying in big chunks. So this is going to affect everybody and availability. Yeah,
I guess Behringer have got. I mean, Moog are a big name, right? But my understanding, I could be wrong here, Nick. My understanding is that there's not a massive amount of employees in that company, whereas Behringer, I think there's more. So I was also thinking, well, is Behringer able to kind of deviate this somehow and start creating stuff a bit differently and changing their chipsets and that kind of thing? I don't know. We don't know enough. This is why I'm interested talking to Matt tonight from Matech Modular, who might know a little bit more behind the scenes on this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, Paulie, you may know as well. It's the chip fabs, which we've spoke about this before. The fabrication plants, there just aren't enough of them. So usually these things, because they scale, there's like maybe one massive factory that does all the 3340 type chips or whatever it is that we use in synthesis. And if there's anything that happens to that affects everything. So it's a question of maybe kind of having lots more smaller, paying a little bit more rather than being completely screwed by these blockages that are going to happen.
Sure. Shame about Behringer, because I'm still waiting on a Profit VS or something like that, or a PPG wave, an affordable, kind of hybrids and stuff like that. Although I am currently saving for a Waldorf M, so I'm hoping that by the time I've got the money for the Waldorf M, it won't have shot up, 40% or something like that. Because that's a worry, isn't it? You save the money up and it's like, oh.
Well, I mean, there are comments. Let me just see, where's the one? Matt Graham Music, let me see if I can get that. We may gasp, we may have to use the synths we already have, which is a fair point. And, yes, it is. But then where would we be? There would be no Sonictalk. If there's no new stuff and we didn't want it, then there wasn't gas. But I think that's on a more serious note. I think we are. I mean, I think John Van Eaton last week posted something which was along the lines of, there is actually Sweetwater are now looking into trading on used equipment as well, and I think we're going to presumably this means we're going to see a lot more used market, because obviously these synths have been through the system. They were bought at a certain price, and people may start to hold their prices, but they're still going to be cheaper than buying new ones. So I imagine we're going to see a real kind of change in the topography of how that works.
Sorry, you go first if you want.
That's right, Paulie, you go.
My kind of channel ethos is about looking at unloved, slightly obscure synths, ones that might not be the prettiest or the easiest to use. So we might get some kind of renaissance of make, do, and mend, and people buying old, interesting equipment and using it in new ways. Kind of like, the 303 and the 909 all over again, but with weird digital stuff or hybrid stuff.
That's an interesting thought. So maybe what we'll actually start to see are kind of mods to existing, maybe cheaper stuff that turns them into something else that then becomes something that's much easier. So, that much easier to have done, and then suddenly it becomes a slightly different instrument and has maybe a more of a nice sound. That's an interesting thought.
Programmers and things like that, Like they've got one for synths like the Matrix 6 and the DSS 1, which are not the friendliest synths in the world. I mean, I love them, but I'm a masochist. I've said this before. But you can get kind of knob boxes for these things as well, JX3P as well and stuff like that now. So maybe we'll see that.
Yeah. Matt, you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Sweetwater thing's quite interesting, because my understanding is that you can sell your stuff on there, and Sweetwater have got a big reach, and there's no fees. If you sell, instead of getting the money, you actually get Sweetwater credits or credit for buying stuff on their website, which is really, I think that's quite an interesting move. You can see there that there's a company really just trying to think, what can we do in this current climate to help move things along a bit. And I think that's an interesting way. And then of course, there isn't really, to my knowledge, a store as such that deals bespokely with this stuff secondhand. Everything of this is usually private or on Reverb or on eBay and that kind of thing. So, actually, again, that's a question for maybe Matt for later about, what happens there in the secondhand market with stuff. And it maybe here's a question for people in the chat room, because I haven't been buying anything recently, particularly off eBay, but are we seeing prices increase on secondhand equipment on things like Reverb and eBay, people, or are we at the minute, are we seeing things pretty pretty much steady.
I think we inevitably will, even if I might jump in and preempt the answers. I'm sure people will have their own answers, but it's going to be inevitable. It may not have happened yet, but it's going to happen pretty sharpish. Because everybody's going to have to go in cost and this is going as the stock turns over. So big container of stuff comes to Europe, is distributed to the different countries. Once that container's empty, that's sort of the price fixed. Then the next container comes over, is going to have all the new prices attached to it because it's shipping a container has gone up by, I don't know, 400%, let's say. It's gone up a lot. So just getting the stuff here. So once it's gone, then the new batches, that's when we'll start to see it. And it depends, I suppose, how quickly these things are selling. If somebody's had a warehouse full of, I don't know, sub 37s, say for instance, and now that's gone, so they can't be sold at that price anymore because the new ones have to come in at the new manufacturer price, the new shipping price, then it's inevitable. I mean, that's just the way it will be. I mean, but hopefully it won't last forever because we all want enjoy. I mean, the occasional new instrument. I mean, I suppose I don't buy a lot of them, but I'm lucky in that I get a lot of them through my hands because I get to try them out. And but yeah, that's a different. Anyway, I thought that was worth throwing in there. I mean, that's kind of a big topic and has a lot more interesting connotations as well. I mean, it's definitely there's just so much. Yeah, there's so much going on in the world at the moment with that I think we're inevitably going to see. I mean, we asked the question as well previously, didn't we? That are we going to see people moving back to acoustic things because they're cheaper to run? You don't need electricity. Do you think by necessity there will be a kind of resurgence of sitting by the fire playing an acoustic guitar or a ukulele? I'm disappointed it's not a SpongeBob ukulele, actually, Paulie. I don't know why. I guess it would be the wrong colour for you, but I do like a uke. My daughter.
When I'm cleaning
windows. We all knew that was coming. I wonder how many people in the chat knew that was coming and sang those words along with us.
Is that the title of the show?
When I'm cleaning windows, I think it might have to be, actually. I'm just going to put that in there. Title, When I'm Cleaning Windows. Yeah, I think it might have to be. And then I can clip that. When I'm cleaning windows. Yeah, I think that's
Oh, God.
I wonder if I think the copyright is probably gone on that already because it must have been more than 70 years or getting close to 70 years.
Must have been.
Oh,
and it's a new recording, of course.
What was his
name?
George
Formby.
George Formby, of course.
My wife genuinely thinks that the grill, the George Foreman grills, are George Formby grills. It's like, he made them. As a little
ukulele. Yeah, they were invented by him in the 1920s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've only just become made. Yeah, that's brilliant. Excellent. I like that. Okay, right. There's just the chat's going by so fast. I can't even pick any to throw in there. But there are lots of great comments in the chat. Yeah, that's some great ones.
Shout out to Rich Hilton, who's in the chat. Hey, Rich.
Ah, nice. Hey, Rich.
Mr.
How you doing,
Hilton.
Rich? Nice to see you. On tour with with Chic. I think, are they doing Duran Duran at the moment in the US? I believe they are, aren't they? Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
I thought I've seen. You could tell when Rich is on tour because he basically usually posts a picture of today's office, and it's like some ridiculous amount of people in a huge stadium or Super Bowl somewhere, just kind of all enjoying themselves. It must be what a great way to spend your working day or evening.
Not bad,
it's a hard life, but that's the sort of stuff that really has got to make you feel good.
Sure.
Okay, right. Let's have a look. I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the ad from Baby Audio. I'll get it out of the way because I know we actually have quite a lot of questions this week as well. So
we do, don't we?
We can maybe use those in place of some of my B-list topics that have made it. Anyway. Baby Audio makes creative effects plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 and Future Music and Computer Music magazine nominated for the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Why not try Super VHS, inspired by the sounds of the 80s with 6 degradation effects to make your tracks sound like they came off a VHS tape. Lo-fi plugin that brings you back to a 1980s aesthetics, very on trend at the moment. Get 15% off when checking out with the code ST15 over at babyaudio.com. soundtoys.co.com. That's the code ST15 to get your discount. Right. We got a super chat. I think these are working. Yeah, we seem to. Super chat, Wagyu. PCBA coming on the Christmas show. That's a great shout, actually. Thanks very much for that, Wagyu. And GeoSynths. Oh, you're very, very kind. I think that's because we plugged his event, but he doesn't have to. But it's also very kind of him. Thank you very much. And the good news is they're actually working because they haven't been for a long time. There's been a blockage in the pipes. Okay, right. Let's see where we go next. This I haven't got a video for this because if I had a video, we would get busted for it. But this is the fantastic bit of news. Janet Jackson broke my computer. This is an awesome news item. This is over on the Register, and what it is, essentially, this is news that sort of came out subsequently because obviously at the time, it wasn't the sort of thing that was wanted to be the case. We think it was probably certain computers which had a certain brand of 5400 RPM laptop hard drive, and the track Rhythm Nation, which was Terry Jam and Lewis, and I know that was it Jam and Lewis or Jam and Spoon? I forget which. Fantastically produced stuff. I mean, that whole Janet Jackson epoch had some really good stuff in it, but it had it's been recognized as a cyber security exploit because what it actually was, there was a resonant frequency in the track that if you played it in the speakers, it would crash the hard drive. Only a specific brand, because of the resonant frequency, just crashes the head and the whole thing would die. And this was obviously has now come out later. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to have any problems with it now. I mean, it's been fixed years ago. But
hang on.
Well, but I know Paulee's in trouble because you've got.
I have a bunch of Toshiba laptops from about 97, which might have 5400 RPM hard drives in. So I'm going to just make a sticker. It's going to have a silhouette of Janet Jackson on, and it's going to have like a line through it. And it's going to be like, this is a no Jackson zone. And make it look like an old PC laptop sticker.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
but I mean, what's interesting is that this kind of, and this was covered on Twit, which is a podcast I listen to, twit.tv, which is Leo Laporte's podcast. And they were talking about it, but there were also apparently other tracks and other instances where certain resonant frequencies from certain tracks would vibrate the power rails because they were too close to the speakers on certain models, and that would shut it down as well. I mean, this is, Matt, we've experienced it before where there used to be, you have to use an SSD for live if you're using a laptop because the bass vibrations could crash a hard drive. I mean, we've been there. This is, I guess, a similar thing to that.
Yeah, I mean, would you believe it? I saw a photo the other day of a Manchester City footballer in the 1960s or whatever, and he was putting a record into his portable record player in his car. So I don't know if that was a real thing or not, but record players in cars, imagine that. I'm surely if you take you go to, exactly, jumping about. I'm
off-road.
Yeah. I'm going to play the dubious one on this one. I think it could be likely that you could play a particular frequency on one of these old laptops and it causes it to freak out. Sure, I think that's a possibility. But it does make me wonder as well because you've got to have the speakers to reproduce that frequency and consistently, and then that's got to be loud enough. And so I'm just playing a bit of a devil's advocate here, but I think it's kind of fun. I mean, I used to have a lot of fun with old technology in that way and trying to misuse it and things. Like, if anyone remembers things like LimeWire and downloading music illegally, I used to upload loads of my music up there under the name Kylie and really big performers back in the day. And I used to get millions of downloads. And people would be downloading stuff, and it was just like really weird, kind of all techa, glitchy stuff. But I was getting millions of downloads, but obviously completely wrong target audience, because we're all teenagers. So they weren't then going and clicking onto my website or whatever. They were just like, "What's this? This is rubbish." But yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
great guerrilla marketing, though. I'd imagine. Great idea. I mean,
Banksy once made a load of. I think Paris Hilton had an album out and he made an alternative remixed version of Paris Hilton's album and cut words out and called one of the tracks like Do Drugs or something like that. And then he put loads of kind of artwork in it. And then he popped them in the CD trays at like HMV in Oxford Street in London. So you were thinking you were picking up the real Paris Hilton album, but you were getting his sort of alternate kind of take on it. So that's kind of another art kind of, I guess, art guerrilla warfare.
But more importantly, you were getting some kind of original Banksy, which is probably worth, I mean,
Yes.
goodness knows what, if you still had one of those.
Yeah.
A friend of mine from Bristol knew Banksy, and Banksy used to lodge in his attic. He wouldn't tell me who he was, and he painted a mural on his attic wall, and it was they painted over it, and it was it could have been. Yeah, it could have been. But I mean, before all of this was a thing. So.
I think it's Neil Buchanan of Art Attack. Remember Neil Buchanan from the TV show Art Attack? I think that's Banksy.
Right.
That's my theory.
A lot of
Because
people,
he's in a band and he
think,
tours all over the place. So I think it's Neil Buchanan.
Definitely.
People think it's one of the Massive Attack guys. I think it's I forgot
3D.
Which guy, not Daddy G. 3D. That's
3D
right,
from Massive Attack. I mean,
oh wow!
Yeah,
I think we all know it's him now, don't we? I mean, we all know. One thing I was going to say though about technology. One thing about technology, like you saying playing live, you're going to have an SSD drive and that kind of thing. Now, definitely, I remember back in the day, things would start falling apart a bit if there was too much bass frequencies going on. But I've been to gigs before and I've seen people on stage running things on, with iPad controllers, OSC controllers and all that kind of thing. They're creating, they're just using Bluetooth or they're using Wi-Fi. And then I'm like, oh, the Bluetooth's got no password on it or the Wi-Fi's got no password on it. And I could, if I wanted to, because I've got the same app on my phone, start interacting with their live set. Because I'm on either their Bluetooth or I'm on their Wi-Fi. So if I wanted to, I could have opened up OSC and maybe start playing around with somebody else's live set from the audience. So be careful of that, people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't assume nobody's going to try that at some point. That would be very. You need passwords on stuff. Definitely. So you're right there, Paulie. You said I heard a sort of Gaz-like incident in your studio.
Up.
I hope nothing's broken. No, he's gone. Maybe something is broken.
Gone.
Your sound's gone.
No, it's fine. All good.
Okay. Phew.
My battery was about to run out. My battery was about to just go.
So it was the ghost of George Formby.
It was. So I reached for the cable and knocked my little audio interface off, but everything seems fine. So
everything's all right. Nothing to see here. It's all fine. Okay. Well, look, why don't we get into a couple of questions, because we do actually have quite a lot, and I think it'd be interesting to sort of see. So, right, I'm going to go first. We'll go with this one. Maybe we'll get this one done quickly, because this is from ADeevision. No, it's not. It's that one, isn't it? This is the one. ADeevision. Why are most groove boxes and drum machines only have 4 bars? And I thought that's an interesting one. You're a big fan of that sort of stuff. I mean, what do you think, Paulie?
I've noticed this actually. Sometimes instruments don't really have sequencers; they more just have kind of complex arpeggiators. I think the answer is the manufacturers expect you to be using a DAW now, don't they? And
I think that's
they often just basically peg their sequencers as more creative modulation source, like on Op6 and ModWave and stuff like that. I think it's only 16 steps on that. So it becomes more of a creative modulation source than an actual proper sequencer. And I think it's just down to kind of market trends basically. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff with old linear sequencers on, like groove boxes from the 90s or synths from the 90s. And it was very much a thing of you'd make your whole track on it. If you think of like the Prodigy using the W30 for everything, just making the entire track on that W30 sequencer, stuff like that. It's trends, I think.
It's true. I think. I mean, Matt. I don't know about you. I mean, I think it's because it's much harder to make an interface though, where it would be easy to create phrases longer than that, and create a paradigm where you could work on more, because you're going to have to usually have pages, and pages are even on. I find it even on the KeyStep and KeyStep Pro. I'm like, okay, where am I? I really, it's just hard to keep track of longer patterns.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, if I'm interpreting the question right, I think what they're saying is, why on a drum machine is there always, sections of 4, which usually equals 16 steps, and why are they in divisions of 4? And my understanding is that when drum machines were first designed and incorporated into popular music, they were designed for popular music, which usually dictates a 4/4 structure in popular music. Yeah. So that's what they were designed for and to be used. And it wasn't until later on, when we started getting digital drum machines, that then we was able to change per track divisions. We could multiply them. We could have them running at 3 steps instead of 16 and that kind of thing. The machine drum comes to mind as, by Electron, as one of the early kind of like, wow, this is something where you can really mess things up. And in the same way, if any of you have ever wondered why, when you look at mixing desk or a sound card, you will see them in banks of 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 100, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And again, my understanding is that this again comes from, we traditionally had 4-track machines, and then they doubled the amount, 8-track, and then to 16 and 32 and so on and so forth. So I wonder if that is kind of, that standard has been built on this kind of legacy of introducing them, and we've kind of just kept with it because we need some kind of framework, I suppose, when we're developing any music technology equipment. There usually should be a framework that you're going to work within, because imagine if somebody did do a drum machine and it only had 5 steps on it and that was it. You'd be like, well, hang on a minute, it just doesn't fit within this framework of what we're trying to do. Could be interesting though.
Yeah. Can I talk about Yamaha for a second? Just for 1 minute.
Yeah, okay.
So even on their early instruments like the RX-11 from 1984, they had different time signatures and stuff. So they were really ahead of the game, and this little fella here, the Rye 30, which mine circuit band from about 1990 has it too. I think that Yamaha are missing a bit of a trick, because a lot of people love their sequencers on their groove boxes. There's one they made called I think it's the RS-7000 from the late 90s. Sampling groove box. People still use them to this day as their main sequencers. And I think I've seen on Gearspace or, the other sites, quite often people just saying, please make a new RS-7000 Yamaha, chuck the sequencer, and because, the knobs and the buttons are getting worn and stuff like that. So I think Yamaha had it right in terms of drum machine interfaces, maybe not so much synth interfaces. But drum machine interfaces.
Well, that's a fair point. Yeah, fair point. Okay, we better move on. There are a lot more questions. Right. Okay. So now I think I feel this is via Nick Howes. So I'm just gonna. I need to press the button.
Hello, Nick.
I'm just pressing.
Nick.
It. Have I done that? Hey. Right. Okay. So I just got to wait for that to go live, and then I can. Yes. Does that mean that's going to work? But yeah, this is from Nick Howes. I guess it was originally via YouTube. Any thoughts on Akai's MPC-61 having so many bugs and CPU issues? Now, this is probably in reference to the Ben Jordan video that came out, which was, he was kind of pretty pissed. He bought himself one because he thought it would fix his issues with for live, and he needed to simplify his setup. And he just found it. There were various bugs, and he was kind of quite cross, and I suppose quite rightly so. And that is it's a fair question. Well, what do you think, Paulie?
It didn't really happen so much back in the day, did it? Because you needed EPROMs or what have you to upgrade operating systems. So I think manufacturers totally made their products rock solid. Mostly, there were a few notable exceptions. But now, because things are so easy to update, it's like video games or something else, isn't it? Firmware is always in a state of flux. So I think it's quite disappointing. I don't know much about this product, but if it's shipped with serious bugs, then maybe it should have been delayed a little bit more. That's the sensible
Yeah, I don't
thing
know
to
how it works because, I mean, obviously the relationship between marketing slots and manufacturing slots, I mean,
Yeah.
the pressure on the software team must be vast on any product
Sure.
like this, because I know the people who do the Akai are good people. I think it's the complexity of a product like this must make it incredibly difficult. But yeah, we shouldn't really be beta testers for things, particularly if they're supposed to work live. I mean, live, you can't have things like that happening.
No.
Yeah, I agree. We shouldn't really be beta testers. I don't really have any more to add than what's kind of already been said, but it is a shame. These things do happen. And, there are some products out there that really never got any better, unfortunately, and then they actually stopped developing them. The Tempest, for example, by DSi comes to mind, unfortunately.
Great sounding
not
thing.
that
Great sounding.
Great sounding thing, awesome machine. Just it just wasn't complete. It wasn't complete, and it's a shame. I don't think they did the open source on that in the end, which could have been good. Or did they? Did they say no? Here's
Sure.
the keys.
Yeah, I'm
Open
not
it
sure.
up.
That's a good question. I'm sure the chat room will know.
The guy who
Yeah, I mean,
made
there
the
are other
sampling-
ones. Hold on, there's another one coming up here. This is what's that? Pioneer SP16 and the Squid. Yes, that's another one that's worth mentioning as well. But yeah. I mean, I guess the answer to the question is no. We shouldn't be beta testers, but inevitably we will be to a degree as products become so complicated. It may be difficult to test every eventuality. And like you say, Paulie, because it's updatable afterwards, there's this sort of less of a cliff edge when you're releasing a product, and that's that. You don't want to print however many thousand or tens of thousands faulty firmware that is impossible to update. I mean, that would be a nightmare. That would be just yikes. You don't want to recall. Imagine that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we do have Sorry. Did you want to add something there, Paulie?
No, it's all good. It's all good. We can save it for another time. I had a little thought.
Okay, well, we've got another question. This is from Ambient LFO via Twitter, because Twitter questions have been coming in. Incidentally, if you do want to put in a question via Twitter, you just tweet to @Sonicstate and start with QQ, and that'll show up, and it means that they come in advance and we can give them to the panel a little bit. So here's one. This is from Ambient LFO via Twitter. Is there still a place for mid-90s to early 2000s VA synths in the studio today? I wouldn't mind starting on that one. Yes, I think yes is the question, is the answer to that. But primarily because, particularly from what we were talking about earlier, which is, as things become, new things are more expensive and scarcer, there were a lot of these things made, and they can still all be misused and broken.
Yes.
I know you were in that as well there, Matt. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean,
have you got any of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I'm just not one of these sort of people who would walk into anyone's studio and say, oh, there's no place for that, or I'm not using this. No way. And particularly 90s stuff. I mean, I used a lot of the 90s stuff, and then to get your hands back on it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh, it does this. I remember these little tricks. And I've actually got a really cool VA synth here, which will be coming to the Sonicstate site soon, which I'm going to be reviewing, which I won't go into too much now, but it's even made its way into all this Euro rack business, would you believe it? So I'm it's just an easy yes for me, defo.
Oh, just want a bit of clarification. What's a VA synth? VA synth is kind of virtual analog synth, so it would be something like the JD800 or the Access Virus, or the things which, or the Quasimidi Raven, let's say, things that had a lot of virtual DSP stuff rather than pure analog. And it was after the kind of FM and LA synthesis kind of wave. It was the next generation, really, before we got back
In fact,
into kind of analog.
I reckon we're going to see the price hike on things like those 90s ones on eBay. You know, if we're not getting new stuff coming out, just going back to what we was talking about earlier, I wonder if we're going to see a massive price hike on all these 90s VA suddenly on eBay. So like, oh, yeah, let's get on our hands on them.
Yeah.
It'll be like vintage jeans that you get on Vinted or whatever. That sort of stuff, right?
It's interesting though, isn't it? This is like this is kind of sort of millennial Gen Z nostalgia in a way, these VA synths, you know? So we look back on them in a kind of very sort of fond way. It doesn't really matter if they mimic analog very, very well, or sometimes you don't want it to mimic analog very well. You want that kind of aliasing, kind of gnarly kind of thing, you know? Think of something like the MS-2000. Nothing sounds like the MS-2000. It is absolutely untamed digital, you know, kind of brashness with all those DWS, GS waveforms and ring modulators and stuff like that. So
just remember tiny, really sort of inconveniently small knobs. I seem to, yes, but
I think that VAs have a great place in the studio, and it's not necessarily for mimicking analog. It's because some of them have really cool, odd little features of their own. Do you know what I mean? Let's for one instance, let's look at the Novation Ultra Nova and Mini Nova, which I know you've played, Nick. So they've got, as well as VA oscillators, they've got wavetables in, and then you get to this mixing section, and you've got things like wave shapers, bit crushers, distortion. I think there's a ring mod, a very sort of digital ring mod in there. And you go to a territory completely out of, I mean, unless you've got a massive, massive Euro rack full of incredibly stable oscillators that can all do through 0 FM and stuff like that. You go to these territories which are very, very outside the realm of analog. You know, you go into these kind of icy caves of exploration. So that's what I use VAs for, really.
Yeah, wow, Rich Hitwell's just donated. Yep, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the Novation stuff is really is quite unique. I mean, in many ways, it was ahead of its time, and you know, was really, really quite a powerful thing. I just want to say thanks to Rich for the £20 drink. In fact, I'll probably see him again sometime this summer, so I'll probably end up buying him a drink with his own donation. There we go. Cheers, Rich. Thanks very much. That's ever so kind. Well, let's flip round now. We've answered a number of those questions. Let's maybe pick up this. This is one more. This has got a video, and this is the SoundToys finally.
Now
gets VST and that
kind of ruins our bottom.
It's now in beta, but VST3 and M1. So this is a long-awaited thing, and SoundToys, as we know, they do advertise quite heavily on the site, and lots of people have been saying, "Where's the new plugins? Where's?" And we've been talking to them, saying, "Oh, let's do something on your new stuff," and it's been not coming. And I think this is. You know, we were led to believe that updating to M1 and VST3, which has been sort of enforced on plugin manufacturers, okay, they've had a lot of time to deal with it, is perhaps not as an easy ride as we thought. And when you're doing it across an entire range, because you got to. I mean, this is great. You can download the beta from SoundToys, beta.soundtoys.com, I believe. You just need active stuff and it'll work, or you could do it on the 30-day demo when I expect it will come along, so you could try it out if you're going to buy any stuff. But Native Instruments haven't done it yet, and they've got a ton of stuff. I mean, this is quite scary, really, when you think, you know, we're getting to second generation Apple Silicon. You know, there'll be a number of more releases past the last version of Cubase that wouldn't support VST, anything other than VST. I mean, we're really getting into kind of like yikes territory. But this is great news for SoundToys, obviously, and SoundToys users.
Definitely. I mean, I'm the kind of person where I still run Windows XP on my main music computer. So I live in that ecosystem. It's not online, so it's not a computer that's online, and I just copy WAV files over. So it's I still live in that ecosystem, but I know that if you are a person who wants to upgrade, you want to get the most kind of powerful thing. Because my workflow, to be honest, is I mix lots of things down. I mix like groups of stems
Right.
down and then treat them as samples and mangle them, etc., and do little, ins and outs on them. And but if you're someone who wants to take your projects from an older computer and put it into your new computer and get it to somehow work, then I think that this kind of stuff, this kind of updating is essential by manufacturers, because the world, as much as someone like me likes to live in the past musically, in terms of music production, I think about 2006 is my happy place for instruments and music production. The world is moving forward. The world's moving forward. New computers are coming out all the time, and people need to update basically their plugins.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I think it is important, Matt. But I know, because you're working a lot in Bitwig, I know you do use a lot of plugins as well. But I mean, your workflow is probably less typical than maybe a lot of users.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I do have to go in the box, I think I said this on the last show. The question from somebody in the chat or whatever, and by the way, I love these questions from people. The question was, what VSTs are you going to? And mine is SoundToys. That's in there. These people just got it right. Straight from the offset. They've got the delays. They've got the weird stuff going on, like with the crystallizer. They've got the distortion going on. They've got the pitching stuff going on. And for anyone who's in education, you can get that whole package for about, I think it's about $250 or something.
That's great.
And I just love the fact that I've never had really, I don't think I've had any issues with their plugins. They're always rock solid. They introduced the effect rack as well, which was an interesting way of combining the effects and putting them together. So I like the fact that they really focus on the quality of the output that they're doing rather than quantity, even though there is a lot that you get in the package. And VST3 is essential, really. My understanding that the pros that you get with VST3 is essentially better processing. You can potentially run more of these plugins, that kind of thing. But you also mentioned Bitwig, Nick, and I was really excited about Clap, which was brought in recently this year with Yuhi, whereby you've got modulation parameters per voice on polyphonic instruments and things like that. Now, it doesn't really apply to SoundToys because they don't have any polyphonic instruments. But I do often wonder if SoundToys were going to get into that world of creating an instrument rather than the effects, what they might do and what their take might be on it, and whether it would be something really original and a bit weird and a bit off, or would it be something that incorporates all of the effects that they've got, like the crystallizer and the phase mistress and the echo boy, and that echo boy is brilliant, by the way. Combining that into some kind of synthesis engine might be really, really interesting. That's something I've often thought about before when I'm using their plugins.
Yeah, I mean, they've really got the filtering and the distortion kind of, they're the first, amongst the first to nail that. So, I mean, and I assume once they've got, any company, once they've got over that hill of having to kind of standardize and getting up to scratch, then they can start focusing on the kind of the new stuff, because you can't really build new stuff in technology that you're about to no longer support, because it's just an awful nightmare. And maybe they don't have as many coders at their disposal as we like to think. A lot of these companies are a bloke in his room and somebody in sales and marketing. I'm not saying that's not the case with them. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but often the companies that we think of as massive are not as massive as we think. I'm always meeting people at trade shows and they're going, "Oh, are you it? Is that it then?"
SoundToys.
What do you expect?
I meet SoundToys every time I'm at a trade show, and they're such a lovely group of people. And then you go in Yuhi's tent, and it's kind of like, it's Yuhi. Well, it's not just him. There's a few others and what have you. It's really interesting meeting these teams and talking to them. And if anyone is ever at a trade show and you meet these people, they always want your feedback. They want to know about how people are using their software and what ideas they have. And particularly, I'm always the first in Bitwig's tent, and I'm like, what about this and what about that? And this doesn't quite work for me and that. And they're like, okay, brilliant, thanks, Matt, appreciate that. So try and make those connections with developers if you're out there.
Definitely, yeah, it's definitely a good idea, I would say. Oh, interesting. Well, it's great. We've had all these questions, and I'm sorry if we haven't got around to all of them. We're now an hour in. I mean, maybe we're just going to need to have a longer show, but that means everybody's got to be available for more. But do appreciate it. Do keep them coming, and it's mostly working. I figured out how to make it work, although my system's not quite working because I've now got a screen where I see all the questions coming past. I could administrate them. This is where I've been trying to get to for ages, because if we just use comments, you know, the comment would have gone past, but what I could do is pull them out and put them in another list, which then I've got a short list, and I can go, okay, let's answer that one. And it's just I've been tweaking my UI and it doesn't work properly, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to get there in the end. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. You're going to do your 6 o'clock stream with Matt Tech, right? So what else is going on in your world? What have you got to plug?
I've got something arrived today. Can I show it, Nick? That I'm going to be.
Sure, go on.
Okay, well,
like an excited child
the whole time we've been on here because I just got it out of the box. But this is
hello. God, it's big.
And this is going to be. I'm going to be reviewing this for Sonicstate, so keep an eye out for that, folks. Going to be playing around with that one.
Grey kind of brutalist-looking piece of equipment. I love it.
Well,
it really is.
Actually, this means the time I can plug, because what we do, we're introducing an upper tier on Patreon, and the idea is, we let you know what we've got coming in for review. You can ask questions prior to the review, and also questions slightly after the review, and then shortly after the review's published, we'll collate those questions from our Patreons, and we'll make an exclusive video sort of addressing some of those things just for them, and that's a kind of a Patreon perk. So, and Matt, I might ask you to just do a little video at some point just to say, I've got it, what do you want to know? And, this is for our Patreon. Sure. So that's one thing that we'll be doing, which in case you were wondering, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/Sonicstate. So that's
a great idea. And just to remind you as well, I did the Paulee Cinema and the Cocaine as well. And if you're on the Patreon with Nick, you'll there's some kick samples on there as well that you can access to as well.
Yeah, people dug those.
So that's it. So hopefully I'll see some of you later on at 6 o'clock where I'm chatting to Matt. And if you've got any questions, join us live so you can ask those questions about, what's going on in this sort of climate these days. And if you're thinking about setting up your own shop or selling anything professionally, he's the one for this. So, I'll see you all at 6.
Yeah, nice one. And Paulie, thank you so much. Are you at the point now where you keep one ear out of your headphones just in case you get the call, Paul, it's starting, we gotta go.
Sure, yeah.
Imminent parent.
It's imminent parent kind of standby. But that's okay. I'm just kind of enjoying like every last minute of freedom I've got, by doing fun things like this and seeing people and having a blast, and also by making videos. So I'm putting up an episode 1.5 today. It's just a very quick sort of thrown together video that I filmed this morning, just so people can see what's in my bunker, what's in my studio. And I'll do a shaky sort of fly through the studio, just pausing at various little interesting bits, because I want to see what people want me to cover on the channel. I've got, as I said, I bought up in between about 2002 and 2010. I bought up all this really weird stuff while it was cheap because no one knew about it, and it's all in there now, and I'm like, well, what do you want to see? What do you want me to do a video on? So there we go. Good plan. Oh, actually, there's another thing that we're doing. We've recently had a slight technology leap where what we're looking for are
anybody's got a sort of favourite music store or synth store anywhere in the world, get in touch with us, because we'd like to do like a little remote tour, show us around your local music store. We're just trying it as a new feature, so do get in touch.
Oh, that's
you
lovely.
can do that via the contact form, and we can do it remotely and then kind of cut together a piece. And I just think it'd be kind of fun, try and support some of the smaller retailers and get that all going.
Fantastic.
But Anyway, that is it for this week. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, everybody, in the chats as well. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for all your questions. Don't forget that we'll be doing questions again, and if you've got questions you want to do in advance, Twitter, tweet to @Sonicstate with QQ and then your question, and then we'll pick that up and it can go in the list and we can pass it on to the panelists sort of before the show. So if there's any prep needed, it can happen. Anyway, that's it for this week. Episode 725. There it is, the Percons. We'll see you all next time. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye bye now.